Facebook. Aloha and mahalo for joining Kokua Council's Honolulu Prosecuting Attorney Candidates Forum. I'm Lila Mower, president of the Kokua Council. The Kokua Council is one of Hawaii's oldest advocacy organizations, engaging those who are interested in shaping the future and the well-being of our community. Despite current limitations on large group gatherings, the Kokua Council continues to be active and recently facilitated conferences to address the government's response to this pandemic in regards to our community. We also offer the public opportunities to meet and study their candidates. This afternoon, we'll meet 5 of the 7 candidates for Honolulu's prosecuting attorney. Candidate R.J. Brown sent his regrets, saying that he had an obligation to his client to keep a prior arranged commitment. The 7th candidate did not respond to our invitation. The order in which the candidates will speak was determined by their own application date. Everyone will be muted except the moderators. We're on the honor system, and each candidate will unmute himself or herself only when it is his or her turn to speak. There will be audible warnings to let the speaker know that it is time to wrap up. In the first round, the warnings will come at 30 seconds and 15 seconds before the allotted time expires. With all other rounds, there'll be only a 15-second warning. Then, to be fair to all, when the allotted time expires, the candidate will be muted and the next candidate will be encouraged to speak. So let's begin this forum with the first rotation. We will hear from each candidate. In 3 minutes, please tell us who you are and why you think you should be Honolulu's prosecuting attorney. Let's start with Ty.
Muted, and the candidate will be muted.
Will all candidates mute themselves? And we're going to start with Ty Kim. Thank you.
Oh, my name is Ty Kim. I'm running for Honolulu Prosecutor because I can make positive changes to the current criminal justice system. I was raised in Oahu. I lived at KPT in Kalihi, where I attended Fern Elementary and Dome Middle School. I also lived and was raised in Kaneohe, graduate of Castle High School in 1984. I am 54 years old. I've been a criminal lawyer since 1992. I'm a graduate of UH Manoa and OU College of Law in Norman, Oklahoma in 1991. I'm running for Honolulu Prosecutor's Office based on my 20 years of criminal law practice, what I've observed, people that I've interacted with, and largely due to an inspiration that I had received from a longtime friend, a Calabash brother. He was a former chief court officer for district courts. I'm sure he won't mind when I say his name, Kane Kaneyuki. A year ago, Kane had inspired me to run for the office. He had expressed that he's known me for almost all of my legal career and expressed to me that I'm a decent guy and I should consider it. And in consideration for running for the office, I visited all 33 different neighborhood boards and to find out what's happening, to find out whether people were informed or aware of our criminal justice system. Also, in light of one of the major scandal that was happening at the prosecutor's office, in visiting the neighborhood boards, I quickly realized Honolulu Prosecutor's Office was the only elected office not represented in any of the neighborhood board. And people were in the dark about workings of criminal justice system. Neighborhood boards are held monthly and they're represented by almost every elected office. Even police and fire chief are present from that district, except the Honolulu Prosecutor's Office. Not in one neighborhood, they're not represented in any neighborhood board. That got me thinking that people needed to be informed. I'm running because the foundation of public safety is missing in our criminal justice system. The foundation is people being informed and educated of public safety. So without foundation, we do not have public safety. My goal is to inform, educate, and listen to people's concern. I believe this can be achieved by holding regular open houses at the prosecutor's office and have the prosecutor's office be more accessible and records be reviewable by the public in general. Without compromising any pending investigation or cases, prosecutor's office doors must be open.
Thank you, Ty. Thank you very much. Jackie Esther, you're next, please.
Thank you. I'd like to start off by thanking the Kokua Council for hosting this discussion and providing this opportunity for conversation. I do look forward to answering your questions and showing you why I am the best leader for the Honolulu Prosecutor. I'm a mother and I'm a career public defender. As a mother, I want nothing more than a safe community to raise my daughter in. As a public defender, I have seen how prosecutors' failed policies of the past have been destroying communities, families, and individual lives for generations, wasting billions of our dollars, and have failed to make us safe. I am running for Honolulu Prosecutor to end mass incarceration and the cycle of crime. It's time that we invest in community services, in education, in housing, in alternatives to incarceration, and stop investing in our jails and prisons. We have to move forward. We cannot keep electing the status quo and failing for the tough on crime rhetoric that has done nothing to keep us safe and has wasted billions of our dollars. It is time for new leadership, a paradigm shift, a new approach. We absolutely can create a more fair and just system. And by doing that, we need to elect new leaders. We can bring the office into the 21st century and beyond by ending cash bail, by treating mental illness and substance use disorder and stop punishing it. Stop criminalizing our houseless and start diverting to services, demanding equal enforcement of the law, and truly supporting crime victims by helping heal from the harm crime causes and offering restorative justice opportunities. I've been fighting for these reforms my entire legal career, and I will continue to do so as your Honolulu prosecutor. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you and your members today.
Thank you, Jackie. Steve Alm, you're next.
Thank you. This election is all about restoring trust to the Honolulu Prosecutor's Office, and I believe I am the best candidate to do that. I was born and raised in Hawaii. I went to University Lab School with my brother Robbie. My parents were both professors at the University of Hawaii in the College of Education. I worked at Dole Cannery for 4 summers. I boxed out of Kalakaua Rec. Fittingly, my first trip to Oahu prison was for a fight. My second fight was with Mark Ibanez out in Waianae. And as you listen to this forum, ask yourself, which of the candidates talks about things they like to do, and which candidate has actually done things, has actually led others in reducing crime. We need to create a new culture of high ethical conduct and of doing justice, not just winning cases at the prosecutor's office. That takes leadership. And apart from Mr. Kanashiro's handpicked successor, Dwight Nadamoto, no offense, the rest of the candidates haven't supervised anybody. They haven't led any initiative, any group of lawyers, certainly any prosecutors. I was a felony team captain and then the head of the 31 deputy prosecutor district and family court division at the prosecutor's office. I taught the deputies to be ethical. I taught them how to be effective trial attorney so they could be effective in court and able to negotiate favorable plea agreements. I ran the United States Attorney's Office. And then I ran circuit court. I did that for 15 years, supervising the in-court performance of deputy prosecutors and defense counsel, including everybody on this panel. And I presided over 200 jury trials, and I worked with probation to reduce recidivism in our probation system. I'm the candidate with a proven record of reducing crime. When I was U.S. Attorney, I led the Weed and Seed effort, which reduced crime in Chinatown by over 70% in 3 years. That meant thousands were not victimized and thousands more never entered the criminal justice system to begin with. As a judge, I worked with Honolulu Probation to create Hope Probation. Research by Pepperdine and UCLA showed that Hope probationers compared to regular probation get arrested for new crimes 55% less often and go to prison 48% fewer days. Now, given the fact that a Hope judge supervises more than 2,000 felony offenders, that means that thousands of Honolulu people have succeeded on probation and avoided going to prison because they were in Hope rather than regular probation. And notably, Native Hawaiians do so much better in Hope. They get revoked and sent to prison 35% less often in Hope than in regular probation. That means hundreds have not been sent there to prison. This is no time for on-the-job training in learning how to be a supervisor or to learn whether or not you can be a leader. I can hit the ground running on day one. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve. Megan Cowell, you're next.
Aloha. Thank you very much. The prosecutor's office actually affects everyone on Oahu, and that's because crime affects everyone on Oahu. As such, I believe that this is actually the most important election on the ballot this year. People think that, oh, crime won't affect me. It always happens to someone else. But these people are mistaken. We have all seen the recent increase in crime, and that didn't happen overnight. This is a result of the current administration's policies. I am Megan Cowell, and I'm running to be Honolulu's prosecutor so that I can fight for the victim. In 2015, the legal community already knew that Keith Kaneshiro was doing unethical things. And so there was a group of very well-respected, intelligent lawyers that got together, and they were looking for a candidate to run against Keith Kaneshiro in the 2016 election. This very well-respected group of lawyers chose me. They asked me to run in the 2016 election against Keith. Before I could accept their offer, however, I had to disclose some personal things about myself. The first thing was that at 15 years old, I lived on the streets of Honolulu. And because I was homeless, I ended up working in a lot of bars, and that's how I paid to live. That's how I paid for undergrad, and that's how I eventually paid for law school. The second thing that I had to disclose to this very well-respected group of lawyers was that I was a domestic violence victim, and there was a record of this. I had been subpoenaed to testify against my boyfriend at the time. And although I am a very strong and educated woman, I was in a very violent relationship for about 5 years. So this group of lawyers and I, we discussed it, we debated, we talked about it. Eventually they decided they could not endorse me as their candidate. And so in 2016, I did not run against Keith Kaneshiro. But despite that, last year, Peter Carlisle continued to encourage me to run for prosecutor. And despite my past, I am now running to be Honolulu's next prosecutor so that I can fight for the victim. If you are a victim of a crime, you want someone that is aggressive, competent, and relevant fighting for you. I do know the criminal justice system inside and out, and I'm the only candidate who has taken the position that we have to charge all crimes, low-level, mid-level, and high-level crimes. I am the prosecuting attorney that will give Honolulu a fresh new start. Mahalo.
Thank you, Megan. Dwight Nadamoto, you're next, please.
The reason I am running for prosecutor is because of public safety. When I looked at who was running, I saw a judge weak on crime and defense attorneys. This recent spate of violent crimes, many of those arrested were on Hope probation. Let me give you two names. Stephen Brown. Stephen Brown is accused of murdering Thelma Boinfield while he was on Hope probation. He had at least 2 bench warrants out on him. Theodore Kim. Theodore Kim is accused of firing a shotgun at his ex-girlfriend. He had violated his Hope probation more than 20 times, yet he was still on probation. Hope probation is not about public safety. Hope probation is the revolving door that lets individuals violate their probation. Steve Alm is the architect of Hope probation. Hope probation is not about public safety. He is also the architect of a 2016 law which allowed repeat violent offenders to be eligible for probation. That is not about public safety. I fought against the release of inmates due to COVID-19. I was the only one. I asked for conditions if they were to be released. None were granted. As a result, hundreds were freed. Now, over a quarter of them have been rearrested for committing new crimes or violating terms of the condition. I was the only one who fought for that. Their release jeopardized public safety. Steve Om is the architect of hope probation. We don't need somebody weak on crime and defense attorneys being our next prosecutor. Megan Cobb, she wants to be prosecutor. Given the scenario, if somebody breaks into your house with a knife and you have a gun, she said, you don't bring a gun to a knife fight. That is not about public safety. She's represented murderers and corrupt officers who have made homeless people lick urinals. Jackie Esser. Jackie fought to reduce the penalty for less than 2 grams of ice and even fentanyl. With drug use rising, to make it less harsh is going to send a bad message to the public. It's going to increase addiction. It's going to increase drug-related crime. It's going to jeopardize public safety. I am the only one out there who opposed that bill. Nobody else did. We don't need defense attorneys to be the prosecutor, and we don't need a judge weak on crime. That is why I'm running.
Thank you very much, Dwight. The next series of questions will be introduced by some of Kokua Council's directors. Each candidate has 1 minute to answer each question. Lourdes, why don't you start?
I'm Lourdes Scheibert. I'm a director here at Kokua Council. I also serve on my association's board as a director. And this question starts with Jackie. We at Kokua Council directors were all raised in a time we could leave our homes and cars unlocked. Children played outside unsupervised. Property damages was unheard of, and violent crimes were rare. What can the justice system do to make the community safer?
Thank you, Lourdes, for the opportunity. What you are highlighting is the failure of our justice system. It's failure of the tough on crime rhetoric, the war on drugs, which has done nothing but to make our nation the top incarcerator in the world and by far the safest. Instead of healing the harm that crime causes, instead of investing in services and treatment, we lock people up in cages at a rate that we know perpetuates crime. If we bring someone into the criminal justice system, studies show that someone is more likely to commit a crime just after 2 days of being held in custody, given the same situation if someone were to be released pre-trial. This is a system that perpetuates crime. We need prison reform, absolutely, but we also need a prosecutor who is ethical, who will invest in communities and education and crime prevention and not the failed policies of the past.
Thank you, Jackie. Steve Om, you're next, please.
Yes, what we need to do is work with our separate communities. When I led the Weed and Seed effort, we had stew and rice at Kaiulani Elementary School, and I asked the residents there, what are the biggest crime problems? And they told us. They told us they needed after-school programs for kids. They needed a Head Start program. We got everybody working together, and in 3 years, we reduced crime by over 70% in Kali'ipalama and Chinatown. That meant people at Mayor Wright homes, the Samoan families, could put their mats out outside and go and sleep, just like what you had referred to in your question. It went from 3,000 felonies in the area down to 750 over a year. It went from 7,600 misdemeanors down to 2,400. It changed the character of Kali'ipalama and Chinatown. That's what we need to do, work with our different communities about problems they identify and work with them to solve them, saving thousands from being victimized and saving thousands more from entering the criminal justice system to begin with. And also, one of the things I am proud of that Mr. Nadamoto does not seem to understand is we changed the mandatory minimum that was required for possession of a small amount of drugs. It is now discretionary with the judge whether to send them to prison. Before that, somebody caught with a tiny amount of cocaine or meth, the judge had to give them the 5 years in prison. Now it is discretionary. So the violent and dangerous can be kept out and the other ones can be allowed to succeed on probation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Megan Kyle, you're next.
Thank you. The question was, what is a prosecutor able to do? A prosecutor is only authorized to objectively apply the criminal laws to anyone that violates the law. That is the only thing that the prosecutor is authorized to do. Crimes have changed. Criminals have changed. If you haven't been in the justice system for over 20 years, you don't understand that criminals are more brave, more brazen, and absolutely more violent. Last Saturday, before the KITV forum that we had, I got attacked by a homeless man. Pedestrians had to come jump on him, pull him off of me. And I was walking my dogs at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. This is not acceptable at all. So what we have to do as a prosecutor is charge all crimes, low level, mid-level, and high-level crimes, and objectively apply the charge to anyone that violates the law.
Thank you, Megan. Dwight Nanamoto, you're next, please.
This recent spate of violent crimes shows the problem. Many of those arrested and charged with those crimes were on probation. In other words, the prosecutor has done his job, the police had done his job, they had been convicted. They were let out, however. They were let out again and again to repeat their conduct and these new crimes resulted. Now, I'm all for giving people a chance, but giving people 15, 20 chances, no. After a certain amount of time, you have to look at it and say, we gave them the chance, now it's time for prison. Previously, as I stated, non-violent repeat drug offenders could get probation. The judge just had to make a finding they were non-violent and he had a program. What Judge Alm did is he made it so that violent repeat offenders also could get probation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dwight. Ty Kim, you're up, please.
Thank you. How does a prosecutor make communities safer? My objective is to listen, inform, and educate the public about criminal justice system. As I said in my opening, public is in the dark, and the public has not been informed or educated about public safety issues and our criminal justice system. It's much more than getting a conviction or incarcerations. Prosecutors can do more. Prevention, rehabilitations can address longer goal of public safety than simply conviction and put it away, putting the offenders away. With drug offenses and mental health illnesses, current rehab programs needs to be extended to make it available for the offenders to receive the help. But the help must be received. If it is not, then there's accountability. Responsible behavior is what law is there to protect and to mandate. Responsible behavior is a choice, but accountability is not. So help must be available and it must be received. To make communities safer, we have to inform the community and work together with the people. Public safety cannot be achieved by law enforcement alone. Hello.
Thank you. Lourdes, your second question?
Okay, so the next question starts with Steve. Name your top 3 criminal justice issues you'll prioritize, and is there a collaborative agreement on these with the police department and judges?
All right, the first will be to go to the prosecutor's office and create a culture of ethical behavior and of doing justice, not just winning cases. And that means training the deputies to be more effective trial attorneys, then they'll be able to negotiate plea agreements from a position of strength. The second is training the deputy prosecutors to identify who are the violent, who are the dangerous, and who are the ones that won't stop stealing. They need to go to prison. I was the toughest sentencing judge on the court. I was the first career prosecutor to be appointed to the circuit court bench in Honolulu ever. And then that's some of the defendants at sentencing. They got to go to prison. Then you look at the successful efforts we've had, like drug court, like mental health court, and like Hope Probation, in order to try to help the rest succeed on probation. We're all better off if they succeed. I was the rare judge that believed in data and research to drive criminal justice policy. So in Hope Probation, for example, they're going to get chances on Hope or regular probation. The research shows they get arrested half as time for new crimes in Hope than on regular probation. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Megan, you're next.
The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to ask anyone that assisted Catherine Kealoha in her misconduct to leave the office. I am the only candidate who was actively involved and that assisted the United States government in investigating and charging Catherine Kealoha and investigating Keith Kaneshiro. The second thing that I'm going to do is charge all crimes. I'm the only candidate who wants to charge low-level, mid-level, and high crimes, including UCPV, which is unauthorized control of a propelled vehicle. The third thing I'm going to do is train the deputies. Right now, there are a number of extremely talented, hardworking, dedicated deputy prosecutors, but they lack direction under this current administration. I talk to them very often because I know most of them, and they're seeking direction. They're looking for someone to lead by example. And so I will train them. I am a trial deputy. I have more trial experience in the past 10 years than all of the other candidates combined. I've been a deputy prosecutor. I'm currently a defense attorney and a civil litigator. So I've done all kinds of trials, including civil trials. Those are the top three things that I intend to do.
Thank you, Megan. Dwight, you're next.
Thank you. One of the drugs is a big problem in Honolulu. I mean, I believe that a lot of our crimes are drug related. They're based upon addicts needing drug money and they commit crimes. One of the things I would like to do is look at setting up a drug team again. They would not only investigate drugs, but they would also investigate unattended deaths. You know, over the last 10 years, our meth-related deaths have quadrupled from 37 to 170. I think we should look at those deaths, see who is selling the drugs, and look at prosecuting them. Another thing, because I would look at is because of our reduced funds, is intelligence-based prosecution. What that is focusing your resources on a group of individuals who are causing the most problems. I've already done this with Honolulu Police Department, and I believe we can do it again. The last thing I want to look at is our juvenile justice system. I mean, our juvenile justice system is severely underfunded. We need programs there to keep them out of the criminal justice system, the adult one. We should look at putting in mental health treatment there. We should look at putting in drug court there. And those are the three things I want to look at.
Thank you very much, Dwight. Ty, you're next, please.
Thank you. The first thing is restoring trust. Public still haven't gotten a clear answer as to how, what, and why it happened. We know from media, we know from reporters as to what an individual or individuals have done and corroborated to do. Now we have even more allegations of Miski arrests, which is alleged to have some ties with prosecutor's office. It's not clear whether it was just with the convicted deputy or anybody else for that matter. But first and foremost, trust. We need to restore trust. And it's not going to happen overnight, but we need to restore it by getting the people involved. People will no longer be closed off and be dictated and told what's happening. People will actually participate within the prosecutor's office by holding regular public open houses and inviting other parts of criminal justice system, representative from law enforcement, representative from judiciary, and the prisons. Roles of each, processes of each, whether their roles and processes are working to keep our homes safer, keep public safety stronger, but more importantly, informing the people of Oahu. so people would know and participate and actively involve. That's a step in the right direction, establishing community section to earn the trust and keep the doors open. Number two.
Time. Thank you very much. Jackie, you're up, please.
Thank you for the question. I will, in cash bail, I will divert crime stemming from poverty, mental illness, and substance use disorder, and I will support crime victims. Our cash bail system creates two systems of justice, one for the rich and one for the poor. It allows a rich, dangerous person to buy their way out of custody pre-trial, while a poor, innocent person sits and languishes in jails for months and years. Under my leadership, a deputy prosecutor will never seek money bail as a condition for pretrial release. The question is whether or not there is significant risk of danger to the community or flight risk. If they are held pretrial no matter how much money they have. We need to divert crimes stemming from mental illness, substance use disorder. Our jails and prisons are not de facto mental health institutions or treatment, and the war on drugs has done nothing but devastated communities for generations. I will provide support on day one. Also, we need to support crime victims. We need a survivor-centered response to crime. It's essential to safe and a just society. The current system is not working for anyone, victims, families, or offenders. I will reorient the office to collaborate with community-based services to provide victims, survivors on day one of the incident with the support that they need to truly start healing. And I will create a restorative justice program in the Honolulu Prosecutor's Office, which will give every victim who wants to participate in restorative justice the right to do so, dramatically expanding the menu of options to help them heal while holding people accountable who commit crimes. Also, as far as restoring trust, in order to do that, we absolutely have to break the ties of the police and the prosecutors. That is how Kealoha happened, when you have a chief deputy, high-ranking deputy married to the chief of police. The ties need to be broken. That is why I never sought the endorsement of SHOPO, and I think it is unethical for any candidate to accept money from unions or their associations. I took a pledge, I will never accept money from law enforcement officers or unions. And I hope all candidates will follow in pursuit. If not, I leave it up to the electorate to not vote for a candidate who's in bed with the police union.
Thank you, Jackie. Barbara, your questions, please.
Hi, I'm Barbara Service. I'm a retired social worker. Like Lourdes, I'm a director on Kokua Council and also the president of my homeowners association. I'm also very active in AARP and the Hawaii Alliance for Retired Americans. My question, we've touched on this a little, but most specifically, what do you think about the head of any department, such as Keith Kaneshiro, being on paid leave for more than a year with no end in sight? And we start with Stephen. Oh, I'm sorry, start with Megan.
Yes, thank you. You know, the difficulty with this is that the prosecutor's office is an elected position, and so there is no other way to get the elected person out of that position unless there's an impeachment process. And currently, Tracy Yoshino has filed an impeachment complaint to try to get Keith Kaneshiro impeached from his position. You know, realistically, this is what happened. The city charter was drafted and revised, and nobody could have imagined that the head prosecutor and the head corporation counsel would be investigated by the federal government, giving a reason to impeach them. And so currently, there is no provision in the city charter other than impeachment to remove them from that office. So although I believe that they shouldn't be sitting in that position for an extended amount of time, unfortunately, the city charter doesn't allow us to remove them from the position. What needs to happen is people need to vote. They need to talk to their city council representative, and the city charter needs to be revised.
Thank you, Megan. Dwight, you're next.
Mr. Kaneshiro is the elected representative, and as thus he can only be impeached and impeached for cause. I could not ask him to step down because really he is my boss. He's the one who, so the only way he can be stepped down is if he impeached for cause.
Thank you, Dwight. Are you through? All right. Ty, you're next, please.
Thank you. You know, we're talking about forcible removal of elected prosecutor. Why is he still receiving full pay and benefits from outside of his office? Is this 2 years paid vacation for one of the biggest corruption scandal, very shameful scandal on our island. But I would ask, you know, we should really seek the sense of doing the right thing from our elected prosecutor, Mr. Kaneshiro. He hasn't done it. I'm hopeful, even after 18 months, I'm hopeful he will resign. Whether he will offer a statement or not, certainly people are due, people are owed an explanation. But if he would be honorable and step down on his own volition without any pressure, that would be great. Now, establishment and same old, doing the same thing, and people who have done it all will do it all attitude makes it really difficult for individuals to do an honorable thing or admit their mistakes. And we need to really repair that or actually change it instead of replacing it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ty. Jackie, you're next.
I agree with what everyone else said. He's an elected official. It has to be an impeachment process. With that said, however, I am frustrated, just like everyone else, that we are paying his salary and he's essentially been on vacation for over a year. If I were in his position, I think the right thing to do would to just step down yourself. The community is hurting. In order to move on from this, he should have just stepped down, and I think the community could start healing moving forward. So that's what I would have done.
All right, thank you, Jackie. Steve, you're next.
Yeah, if Mr. Kaneshiro had said, I'm not guilty of these charges, I'm gonna fight them, then that's one thing. But when it was announced last fall that he wasn't gonna run for re-election, that was the time for him to do the right thing and quit. Then we could have had a special election in April and we could have moved on. As it was, he's just collecting a paycheck all year. He's allowing Dwight to collect a paycheck all year. Other of his friends in the office are able to collect paychecks all year and increase their retirements. That is not the right thing to do.
All right, thank you, Steve. Barbara, your second question?
My second question sort of ties into that. Given the, and some of you have touched on this already, I've given you an opportunity to touch more. Given the current situation where the Honolulu prosecutor is on paid leave due to being a target of a federal probe, what specifically will you do to bring public trust and confidence to the prosecutor's office?
Dwight?
I'll start with Dwight, please.
You know, what Catherine Kealoha done was despicable. I mean, she used her position to help her friends and family. So what I've done is, you know, I've told all our employees, if you see something wrong happen, you see something unethical happen, to report it. You know, I've developed anonymous ways you can report it through a tip box, through hotline and things like that. We have also made it so that any plea agreements have to be looked over by 2 supervisors. Another thing we have done is that we have installed encryption software into our computers so that you know, the sensitive information only goes to who it is meant for. Another thing it allows us to do is to monitor computer use and email usage, so we know that people are not going into files that they should not be going into. So those are some of the things we were doing. Another thing we do is we're trying to be more transparent. You know, I've gone to neighborhood boards when this recent spate of violent crimes started up. I went to them, I talked to them, I tried to see what the problems are. You know, we are always looking at our victims. We always consult with victims during during every procedure, every part of the criminal justice system. So we try to keep in touch with them. You know, whenever a plea agreement is given, we always go through the victim. You know, recently there was a case in which a police officer was allowed probation. Well, we got that clear for the victim first. You need to understand that's a 10-year-old case when she reported it. No physical evidence. She was okay, that's what she wanted. She wanted it so that he would never be a police officer again. We got that. She wanted, so he would have to register as a sex offender for life, and we got that. So that's what we're doing. We're trying to be upfront, honest with our victims, and we're trying to be more transparent.
Thank you, Dwight. Ty, you're next, please.
Thank you. To promote or regain public trust, we must be open as the prosecutor's office. It is an elected office. It's an office that belongs to the people, always has, and always will. And we must return it back to the people. The door must be open, meetings must be open, records must be reviewable. Again, I would stress that without compromising any pending investigation or cases, prosecutor's office has to be an open book. We have to start there. We have to have a community reach out, to invite public, to show the public of changes, actually to see them. Instead of telling them we'll do better, instead of promising we'll do better, we'll do it together with the public. Listen, inform, and educate. We'll learn together, and we'll proceed and head on together to develop, to build stronger, safer, and more informed communities.
Thank you, Ty. Thank you very much. Jackie, you're next.
The current office operates in a black box. As I have run my campaign, I will put all my major policies online. I will make it a participatory office of justice where the public is invited to the table and we're asking them what they need for public safety. I am the only candidate who submitted testimony in support of HB 2749, the prosecutorial transparency bill, and I'm on record that I will adhere to the bill whether it passes the ledge this session or not, and that will help restore trust in the prosecutor's office. If the other candidates want to restore trust in the office of the prosecuting attorney and support transparency, I wonder why they did not testify on this bill. And the current Honolulu Prosecutor's Office under Mr. Nadamoto opposed the bill for transparency. I will make adherence to the highest ethical standards my top priority for attorneys and staff. I will invest in new leaders who exemplify ethical behavior. Of course, I will also remove any prosecutors involved in the Kealoha scandal and who currently remain in the prosecutor's office. I will create a code of conduct for lawyers and staff, and I will create a safe and secure environment for employees to report misconduct without fear of retribution. I will also, thank you.
Thank you. Steve, you're next, please.
Yeah, I would certainly create a culture of high ethical standards and of doing the right thing. I've done it before, I can do it again. No deputy, whether supervisor or otherwise, should be handling a case where they have a conflict of interest. Kathy Cale never should have been supervisor of a division where she was making the call on whether police officers would be charged with crimes or not. I would appoint good people to these supervisory positions, one who had a lot of trial experience. I have done that in the past. At the United States Attorney's Office, I appointed Elliot Inoki, John Payton, Flo Nakakuni, Les Osborne, Mike Chun. At the prosecutor's office, Loretta Sheehan, Ron, now Judge Johnson, Tom Brady. You need supervisors with a lot of experience because then you know they've been tested and they're not, and hopefully will not fall apart, because you want to appoint good people and let them do their jobs. And you got to train the deputies to be more effective trial attorneys. That will bring public confidence. They'll be able to negotiate more favorable plea agreements. And you need to get out there in the community, like in Weed and Seed and Kalipalam and Chinatown and other communities, to reduce crime. That will restore the public's trust that you're doing the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Megan, you're next.
It's interesting that Steve brings up the fact that Catherine Kealoha was the supervisor for the division that was investigating and that ultimately charged a police officer, and that there was definitely a conflict of interest. I was the defense attorney who represented Albert Lee in State versus Albert Lee. I am thoroughly familiar with who participated and who assisted Catherine Kealoha in her misconduct. I am the only candidate that has met with, sat down with the FBI and the Assistant United States Attorney, Michael Wheat. And as such, I know exactly who helped Catherine Kealoha and what they did. So the first thing that I would do is I would ask them to leave. And if they don't, I will terminate them. The second thing that I would do to restore justice to the prosecutor's office is follow the law. The prosecutor can only objectively apply the criminal law that currently exists. The prosecutor cannot choose who to charge, what race to charge, or what race not to charge, or what crimes to charge, or what crimes not to charge. Because the victim of a burglary or a criminal property damage whose car has been damaged is going to say, wait a minute, why isn't my crime being charged? Why do you get to decide that I don't get justice? And that's how I would restore justice.
Thank you, Megan. All right, Rick, you're up with your questions.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate hearing from you all. So I'm Kokua Council's first vice president. I'm secretary at Hawaii Meals on Wheels. And I could rattle off several other Kapuna kind of related things I'm doing. For my question, though, I just want to point out that I've been in the mental health field for 45 years. I actually moved here a few years ago from Seattle. And my question's all related to diversion kind of programs. So I would like to hear your thoughts, and we've done a little bit of this already, of course, but on mental health court, community outreach court. I met with Judge Beccaro about that program a little while ago. Transition homes, your work release programs, Fernhurst, and Steve, you mentioned Hope. We've talked about that a little bit. And really, I started a program in Seattle on substance abuse for developmentally disabled, for cognitively disabled, first in the nation. So substance abuse programs with realistic, measurable outcomes. What role does the prosecuting attorney's office serve in the promotion, development, implementation of these community-based, less restrictive recovery programs? Now, I know we've talked a little bit about that, but I'd like to hear a little bit more detail on that. We're going to start with Ty. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. A prosecutor's job, first and foremost, it's public safety. Whatever the public safety can be achieved, whatever the most effective way public safety can be achieved, we should pursue it. Prosecutor's job and public safety does not dictate conviction and incarceration is be all and end all. We have too much of that, too many of that. We have to have help available. Currently, there are one bed space for 20 to 40 people in need of help. Of course, it's another question whether the people that are in need of help will receive help, but help must be available. We need to expand the current rehabilitation programs for addicts and mental health illnesses, people with mental health illnesses. We need to expand the state hospital system to treat mental illness and to address them. We need to expand current rehabilitation programs across the island, Ho'ailani, Salvation Army, Sand Island, excellent choices. The problem with most of these programs are individuals can just pick up and leave. And that has to change. We have to have public-private working relationship together to fund and promote these programs and expand on it. Private and public working together. And people must be informed of the need to expand. There will be need for more economic help in expanding any program. So people, again, must be informed. And we need to help and expand these programs because there are a lot of people in incarceration that needs help and they're not getting it from prisons. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ty. Jackie, you're next. Thank you, Ty.
Thank you for the opportunity. I want to begin by saying that this question is near and dear to my heart, as I have two brothers, one who suffered with mental illness his entire life until he ultimately took his life, and I also have a brother who suffered with substance abuse disorder. I have seen not only on a personal level, but as a public defender, how our criminal legal system is not the appropriate place to be treating mental illness or substance use disorder. I do believe that a prosecutor needs to provide services. That should be the norm. And then we need to expand our mental and drug courts. I do want to also point out that it falls ethically short when a candidate says, I will charge all crimes. The ABA standards on ethic, which oversees a prosecutor's role, says that the functions and duties of prosecutor includes reform, and that the prosecutor should seek to reform and improve the administration of criminal justice, and when inadequacies or injustices in the substantive or procedural law come to the prosecutor's attention, the prosecutor should provide service to the community, including involvement in the public safety. So it is not the role of the prosecutor to charge all crimes. The role of the prosecutor is public safety. Public health is public safety. Under my administration, I will reorient the office. I will collaborate with community-based organizations to provide service on day one for those who are suffering with mental illness and substance use disorder. Mahalo for the question.
Thank you, Jackie. Steve, you're next.
Yeah, truly violent, dangerous, the ones who won't stop stealing should be sent to prison at sentencing, but that's probably 30–35%. The vast majority can and should be placed on probation. And I have worked extremely hard to make those systems work better. I was the drug court judge for 3.5 years during the same time I was doing HOPE. We shifted the drug court focus to a higher risk probation population rather than the easy cherry-picked pretrial population. We also got a special grant, so we had a whole new track for dual diagnosis. In HOPE probation, we went from nothing down to 2,500 people in HOPE. I have visited all the drug treatment programs in Hawaii. Do your own research, call them all up and ask which of the candidates for prosecutor they support. We've got great dual diagnosis programs like Poilani, like Hinamauka, like Queen's Day treatment. And as Alan Johnson at Hinamauka, the CEO, would say, treatment works, but it works better if they're in HOPE. And the leverage of the criminal justice system can be used to make this work. So the prosecutor at a seat at the table will be talking about rehabilitation, will be talking about trying to help people succeed in the community. And I am the perfect person to do that because I'm known for being tough with the violent ones and the ones who need to be locked up, but I'm also compassionate, and I have helped more people on probation succeed than the rest of the candidates combined. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. So next we have Megan. Thank you, Steve.
Treatment is always the better option, always, every single time. But the problem is most guys or most girls that are using drugs, specifically crystal methamphetamine, will not choose treatment. They won't choose treatment over their children. They won't choose treatment over eating rubbish, eating food out of a rubbish can. They won't choose treatment over living on the streets. And so the reality is that prison saves lives. Once you are arrested for a crime, you are put in OCCC, you should not have access to drugs, and now you have to choose. Am I gonna go get treatment and clean myself up, or am I gonna spend some time in prison? That being said, this is the way the justice system works. Oh, I heard the bell, but diversion programs are always better.
All right, thank you, Megan. Dwight, you're next.
Programs. I'm for drug court, I'm for mental health court. And the thing that I would like our drug programs, our diversion programs to start earlier. I would like them to be incorporated, or some form of them to be incorporated in a juvenile justice system. So we can, we found that a lot of young drug users, there are a lot of young drug users. In fact, they were being paid with drugs in order to commit crimes. And these people are 17, 18, 19, very, very young. So I would like the diversion program to start young, especially drugs and mental health. Because, a lot of our juveniles, they have, a lot of problems. I've been told that juvenile-related suicide has been going up lately. I mean, there's a lot of problems that I think mental health court could help with our juveniles.
Rick, your second question, please.
All right, thank you, Steve. And thank you, everybody, for your answers. As a mental health worker, it's reassuring to hear that we're focusing on that some. So in the same vein, so the prison system has become one of our nation's largest private industries. Hawaii sends many adjudicated offenders to the mainland to serve their time, which isolates them from their family and loved ones. What are your thoughts on this arrangement? And we're going to start with Jackie.
It absolutely needs to end. It was supposed to be temporary and it's still going years later. It's a disgrace. And the fact that we're sending our majority Native Hawaiians, we're ripping them from their families, their home, and we're sending them to prison in Arizona or a desert or any other state where their families cannot come visit them, and then we expect them to be reintegrated when we just open the doors. It absolutely needs to stop, and we can do that through charging and sentencing less people to prison. We need to focus on rehabilitation, services, treatment on day one, instead of just continuously cycling people through the system that ultimately leads them to prison. We can also decarcerate through simple things like bail reform. And these are my priorities on day one of the office.
All right, thank you, Jackie. Steve, you're next.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely shameful that we send our people to be housed in the mainland. You know, it's just terrible. At the same time, a number of prisoners tell me, Judge, you know, I'd rather do my time on the mainland because this private prison has all these programs I can take. So that also is shameful that our local prison system doesn't offer programs so people can be rehabilitated. The Public Safety Corrections Department should be looking at people leaving prison from the day they arrive to give them educational opportunities, vocational responsibilities, and the opportunities and the like. We have to encourage programs like HOPE that have led to half as many people going to prison, half as many people getting arrested. We also need to, you know, take advantage of statutory changes, as I did, which allow judges to keep the violent and dangerous, send them to prison, but put many more on probation. And the research is clear. Treatment works better out in the community rather than behind bars because it's too artificial an environment behind bars. And I encourage people to do their own research in this area. You want to look at HOPE probation, Google managing adult probationers, HOPE probation, or the follow-up study, HOPE to a follow-up study. HOPE works. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Megan, you're next.
Thank you. Part of the reason why I didn't want to run for prosecuting attorney is I am not a politician. I say what I mean and I mean what I say. And it is very dangerous for politicians to overpromise their positions. A prosecutor's sole duty is to objectively apply the criminal law as it exists. The Department of Public Safety is a separate entity head by Nolan Espinda, who was appointed by the governor. It is the Department of Public Safety's duty and authorization and kuleana to manage the prisons and the jails. The prosecutor has zero kuleana, zero authority to do so. And so if the people are concerned about that, they need to look at their governor, who is the person that appoints the director of the Department of Public Safety. The prosecutor has no authority over that.
Thank you, Megan. Dwight, you're next.
Thank you. You know, I've always been supportive of a new prison. I mean, our OCCC is over 100 years old in parts, and I would like a new prison. I mean, this COVID-19 thing kind of characterizes that we need a new prison. We need more room in the prison, not necessarily to fill it up, but to make those who are incarcerated there, and people who have to be incarcerated, to make it a more humane space, and to also to give them adequate room so they can get programs which will help them overcome the drug addiction. I have always been for a new prison, and my understanding is that if we build a new prison, one of the ways they're looking at it is to make it a state, a public, and private partnership. So that will reduce the cost. And regarding home probation, yes, look at the statistics, look at the studies. Look at Home Probation National Institute of Justice, NIJ, and just read it and you can decide if it's working or not.
All right, thank you, Dwight. Ty, you're next.
You know, speaking of mainland prison, the one that Hawaii utilizes, Saguaro in Arizona, is just one of over 120 affiliated prison system. It's one giant corporation. They make profits. They make money from inmates' incarcerations. They do offer programs that our local facilities, Halava Correctional Facility, do not provide. Now, having said that, prison system, Department of Public Safety, prison system is just a part of our criminal justice system. Police, prosecutor, judges, and prisons. That makes up the general makeup of criminal justice systems. We have to work together. We can't say this is just our police job and it's up to the prosecutor, up to the judge, up to the prison to do whatever they want or whatever they need to do. We need to work together. People needs to be in concert with these different departments and be aware and be informed. Why is there a need for additional prison space? Why do we have to have it in Kalihi? Why do we have to have it in Mililani? People don't want it near where they live. People need answers. We need to provide the answers because like anything, any programs, any public safety parts needs public funding. There has to be private partnership to fund it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ty. All right, I'm going to ask the candidates to please try to keep your answers to 1 minute. We're running late. All right, let me introduce Helen Wagner. Helen, your question, please.
Yes, my name is Helen Wagner and I serve on the board with Kokua Council. I am also an advocate for senior issues and caregiver issues. But I'd like to ask this question, starting with Steve. What would be your top priority once you're elected into office? Thank you.
Top priority is restoring trust to the Honolulu Prosecutor's Office. That is it by far. The public doesn't trust the office. The police don't trust the office. That means creating a culture of doing justice, not winning cases. It means a culture of high ethical standards. It's talking about training the deputy prosecutors. In court, I did that when I was there before. I had them in their suits on Saturday morning in district court, learning how to do opening statements, direct exam, cross-exam. And if they're more effective in court, you're going to see more success in trials. You're going to see better plea agreements. We're also going to make sure there's no corruption going on, hire good, morally based supervisors to do that, not allow the conflicts of interest that were obvious with Kathy Kealoha when she was there. And we're going to create a system where that we have a mentoring program. So somebody has a mentor outside of their chain of command. So if they see anything that's a problem or otherwise, they will do that. We will be engaged, we'll be more transparent. The public will be able to see what we're doing and we'll work with communities to solve their problems. That will reinstate trust by the community in that office.
Thank you, Steve. Megan, your answer, please.
And Megan?
Yes.
What is your top priority should you be elected into office?
Thank you. My top priority will be to follow the law. I know it sounds crazy, but I'm the only candidate who is taking the position that I'm going to follow the law. And that means seeking justice by objectively applying the criminal laws that already exist. I am not going to choose the race that I'm going to charge. I'm going to charge Hawaiians or non-Hawaiians, homeless or not homeless, rich or poor. I will objectively apply the law to anyone that violates the law. So if a mother of two has a car that she uses to get to work to support her 2 children and her car is stolen, I'm going to charge the person that stole her car because she can no longer get to work. If someone breaks into your home but doesn't hurt you, but has committed burglary and we can prove that case beyond a reasonable doubt, I'm going to charge that person because I don't want the victim to be in fear that this person is going to come back now that the person knows how to get into the house and where you sleep at night. So I will objectively apply the law to anyone and everyone that breaks the law.
Thank you.
Dwight Nanamoto, please.
Yes, thank you. One of the things I want to look at, and it's what we've been looking at right now, is the laws. We're looking at creating new laws, amending laws to protect our most vulnerable people. One of the laws we looked at was a DV law, which made DV cases easier to prosecute. That law passed unanimously through the Senate, 1 vote short of unanimous by the House. But unfortunately, at the 11th hour, it was pulled. We want to look at that law again. It would make domestic violences easier to prosecute. Another law is laws relating to our kupuna or our senior citizens. I want to look at the law so that if somebody commits, let's say a theft second from the person, that we can bump that up to a theft first. In other words, punishable by 5 years, now punishable by 10. The reason being because a theft second, person actually pulling it from one of our elders, a kupuna, could result in tragedy. The person may hold on to it, and she may fall to the ground and get injured. So I want to look at protecting our most vulnerable, and that also includes our pets. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Dwight.
you.
Tai Kim, please.
Thank you for the question. Top priority, definitely it has to be getting the community to get their criminal justice system back in their hands. Criminal justice system, public safety belongs with the people. It has too long been run by a group of people or an individual without sharing their ideas and their thoughts and run amok on our justice system. We need to gain their trust. And as I said repeatedly over and over again, and which is top priority on my agenda, is to get the community involved and informed and educated. That's the beginning of public trust. Not the end, but it's a mean to accomplish public trust. It will take time, but I will invite people and demand other parts of criminal justice system to be present as well, to answers to their accountability, to answers to their actions that either promotes or impedes public trust and hurts our public safety. Thank you.
Thank you, Tai. Jackie, you're up.
Thank you. Ending mass incarceration. And I will do this by diverting crimes stemming from poverty, mental illness, and substance use disorder. By doing this, we can provide services on day one for people, wraparound services, instead of continuously cycling people through our jails just to release them to the next block in a worse situation. By doing this, we can then reallocate the prosecutor's resources to focus on the very serious violent crimes, the crimes that matter most to our communities, our kupuna, our keiki. We can ensure that our police resources are used to ensure a full and fair investigation, to make an arrest. The number one preventative for crime is that someone feels like they're going to be caught. But when we utilize our police resources to be social workers, they aren't out there investigating the very serious crimes. We need to make sure there's an arrest, and we need our prosecutors, our top prosecutors, ensuring just convictions in these cases. This is why if we just rely on prosecuting the low-hanging fruit, our office resources are not unlimited. So we need a realignment, and I also want to provide meaningful support to crime victims on day one and not wait for a conviction. And we can do this by providing trauma-informed care, restorative justice options to crime victims.
Thank you, Jackie. All right, Gary, can you introduce your question, please?
Thank you. I'm Gary Simon. I'm on the board of Kokua Council, and I'm also president of AARP Hawaii, and I'm president of the Hawaii Family Caregiver Coalition. My question is, because kupuna are preyed upon in scams, financial exploitation, and physical and mental abuse, what would you do to be harder on the perpetrators than has been the norm, to send a clear message that it won't be tolerated, and to discourage them and others from doing the same? Please, Megan.
Thank you. I will say that, again, I know I sound like a broken record, but the prosecutor's authority is only to objectively apply the criminal laws that already exist. And I do note that kupuna are preyed on, and the prosecutor's office has an elder division. That division is tasked with prosecuting cases whose victims are over a certain age, and they include extended amount of prison time and harsher penalties. So what I would do is make sure that that division is well staffed, depending on who wants to stay at the prosecutor's office when I'm there, and make sure that the deputies are all trained to do trials, because the prosecutor's office is a trial office.
Thank you. Dwight, you're next.
Thanks, Dave. Gary. Yes, first of all, as I said, I was looking at the passing new laws to help Kupuna. Another thing is looking at the laws we have. When I was a deputy attorney general, I prosecuted a case against a Florida company. And what I did, I didn't charge theft, I charged securities. And with a securities fraud case, if it's over a certain amount, I believe $100,000, it's a Class A felony. And at least that Class A felony has not been amended, so you get convicted, it's 20 years jail. So you got to look at each case. And, you know, and it's not really that hard to be a securities. In my case, the securities was promissory notes. So in that case, over $1 million in promissory notes were sold to our citizens in Hawaii, many of them Kupuna. I charged him, I charged a local person, I got him to testify against the people on the mainland, extradited the guy from Florida eventually. And so we charged a whole lot of people. When I talked to the Florida regulated people, I asked them, because this was a nationwide scandal, and they had told us, or told me, that we were the only state that actually made a criminal charge out of it. So it's a matter of looking at the laws that you have, and I think the securities law can be very useful in that regard, especially with scams.
Thank you, Dwight. Ty Kim, please.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you for the question. You know, I do believe as the prosecutor, public safety is foremost, first and foremost. It's not all about waiting around to have a law has been broken or crime has been convicted. We can do much more than that to achieve public safety. We need to educate our kupunas. There has to be more information out there to protect our kupunas from any kind of scam or potential scam. Having said that, criminal justice system has 4 general parts. Again, police, prosecutor, judges, and prisons. After prosecutor applies the law to misconducts to establish that law has been broken and the person is convicted, we make recommendations to the court who renders the sentencing, and the court renders the sentence based on the current guideline. If the current law impedes accountability or prevents it, we need to change them. We need to invite all the different 4 parts of criminal justice system. Ask the judge to come to open house and explain him or herself as to why particular sentence was rendered. We would demand it. How can we demand it? Every part of criminal justice system works for the people. That's the commonality. Works for the people, draws their salary from the people. I'm in support of judges having to be elected. That's another issue altogether, but the bottom line is we can no longer tolerate different type of positions without explanation. We need to be explained why certain offenses are treated in such a indifferent manner. They impact all of us, every one of us. We need answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Ty. Jackie, you're next.
We need a leader who truly understands that the criminal legal system is not the place to deal with societal problems like mental illness, substance use disorder, and poverty. We need to divert these crimes to community-based services on day one. By doing this, we can then reallocate the prosecutor's resources and our police resources to focus on the very serious crimes that matter most to our communities, the crimes that are affecting our kupuna and our keiki. We need to make sure that there's a full and fair investigation, that someone is arrested, and that the conviction is a just one. However, harsher sentences does not prevent crime. What prevents crime is that someone feels that they're going to be held accountable, and there's a conviction and a punishment, and also we have to allow someone to transition out of the criminal legal system once they've done their time. We also need to focus on our youth and our children and prevent people from coming into the system unnecessarily. And we can do this by collaborating the office with the Department of Education, with our youth leaders to provide restorative justice and other services that will help them from going down a path of criminality.
Thank you, Jackie. Steve you're next, please.
While violent crime is hard to deter, that white collar crime definitely can be deterred. When I was a judge, I had a guy in front of me who had been hired by the Salvation Army. They didn't do a background check. He was a disbarred lawyer and CPA from the mainland. He ripped off a whole lot of senior citizens when he was head of planned giving at the Salvation Army. I gave him 30 years in prison. I ran 3 10-year sentences consecutive. And at his sentencing, I told him, I hope you've ripped off your last senior citizen. You are a predator. You should be locked away so you don't do this. Secondly, when I was U.S. attorney, we had a violent purse snatching ring that had committed hundreds of purse snatchings. We organized, got together with the police, we stopped it cold, and they all went to prison. Weed and Seed was an effort that it reduced all crimes for senior citizens, kids, everybody in Kalihi, Palama, and Chinatown by 70% in 3 years. And part of it too is training the deputies to focus on the violent, the dangerous who won't stop stealing, get prison for them. For the remainder, ask for probation. That's appropriate. it's a CYA thing to ask for prison all the time. I was sick of seeing it as a judge. And if you only ask for prison some of the time, when you need it, then I think the judges would be more likely to listen to it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve. Dale, your 2 questions for the candidates, please.
Hello there. Yeah, I'm 70 years old myself. I've been on a condo board for 12 years, been affiliated with the Kokua Council for a couple of years now. Just got on the board recently. This again has to do with financial abuse of elderly. Think about this. Some other states have prosecuted offenders for abusing the power of attorney. This is not done here in Hawaii, leaving cognitive challenged kupuna at risk of being victimized by people they trust. How would you advocate for a change to have the same protection here in Hawaii? Thank you.
We start with
Mr. Nadamoto. Mr. Nadamoto, thank you.
I'm not quite sure what you meant regarding power of attorney, but that sounds like it's probably related to some theft case, and it could be possibly prosecuted under a theft by deception or unauthorized, receipt of property. So I think we may have the laws. We just got to look at them, and we got to look at the facts behind your situation. But you also got to remember, as with this recent spate of violent crimes, the prosecutors and police have done their job. They did get convictions. But having a conviction is not the end. We also must get the judges to put down a meaningful sentence. So I would have to look at the exact situation, and I would be in favor of those type of laws, but I think we probably have some laws that can cover that situation. But I have not seen any of those type of laws come in from our HPD.
Thank you, Dwight. Tai Kim, you're next, please.
Thank you, Dale, for the question. You're right. The more and more our kupunas, elderly, are targeted because these scammers, people they trusted, turned out to be criminals. And again, it does take a lot of education and reassuring and community involvement. Without community involvement, we cannot prevent or even pick these characters out, and whatever the law impedes, current law impedes or prevents accountability, we will address it together. That's why these public forums, not just for the election, not just for prelude to getting elected, but as the elected prosecutor, having the meetings, public open houses, hear people's concerns, elderly and young alike, issues that affects our community, and addressing them together, reviewing the law. If the law impedes accountability, we gotta take it to our legislators. And I'll be in the forefront with you, with the people, demanding change. Thank you.
Thank you, Tai. Jackie, you're next.
Thank you. What you're highlighting is the failure of prosecutors' policies, the tough on crime, the war on drugs. Again, we're over-criminalizing our societal issues. The criminal legal system is not the appropriate venue for it. And by doing that, we're not going after the crimes that truly matter most to our communities. As we have seen, what you're describing is actually a crime already on the books. It's not being prosecuted. You have to ask why. Again, our prosecutors and our police are being overwhelmed with dealing with houseless issues, with substance use disorders, with mental illness. It's not the appropriate venue, and there's actual true victims of crime being taken advantage of. We need to, and a good example of this is the quarantine violations. Right now, it is illegal under the governor's proclamation for landlords to evict people. However, evictions are happening to both most vulnerable communities, and it's never been charged. I will realign the office priorities so we are charging people in power who abuse their power and who abuse our kupuna and take advantage of our most vulnerable.
Thank you, Jackie. Steve, you're next.
I have always been interested in trying innovative things, in trying new things, as well as using stuff that's worked in the past. I would be very interested in looking at laws like this. I may even give the questioner a call to ask about it, but it takes close cooperation with the police department and other investigative agencies, including the investigators at the prosecutor's office, to look at this. And I would be happy to do that. I also have the history and the gravitas to go to the legislature and to get bills passed. I've done that in the past when I was a prosecutor, and we got the penalty for manslaughter raised from 10 years to 20 years over the vehement objections of the public defender's office. And the reason we did it is often that's the fallback position for domestic violence cases. As a prosecutor, I was always able to beat that defense, but others have struggled with it. So it's one of those things, the weakest among us need our protection. As a judge, I was harsh on perpetrators of that. As a prosecutor, I'll do exactly the same thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Megan, you're next.
Sorry, thank you. A power of attorney is a piece of paper that gives somebody the authority to act on behalf of someone else. So for example, if a kupuna was deemed incompetent and she could not make her own decisions in a reasonable manner anymore, she could give her authority to make decisions on her behalf to somebody else. And that is called a power of attorney. So I think what the question goes to is there are many abuses when there is a power of attorney in place. And in order to prosecute that type of crime, we have to look at the facts and circumstances. When was the power of attorney initiated? What beliefs did the grantor have when she gave the power of attorney? Why did she give the power of attorney at the time that she gave it? Was she competent before or after? Is the person that's acting on her behalf the power of attorney person? Are they following what the kupuna wanted to have done? And so we have to have investigators, specifically the Honolulu Police Department, investigate to determine all of those factors, because those are things that we would have to prove in order to prove the abuse.
Thank you, Megan. Dale, your second question?
Okay, back here again. I spent 12 years on this condo board, long enough on a learning curve that I'm onto some of the aspects of racketeering and property management, okay? Approximately half of our state population now reside in these homeowners association complexes, which the state is not regulating because it's assumed they are self-governing. This leads to a wide range of abuses by some rogue boards and management companies. With so much of the population at risk, what can you do to help condo owners? Thank you.
Ty, you start, please.
Question, Dale. I too live in a condo with association. I too live in a condo with association with board members. Some of them have been there from the very beginning of the building. I mean, this is a 40-year-old building and their board members still here, original board members, and they have such a firm hold on their influences and their old way of doing things. There really is no new voice. How does this impact anybody? It impacts everybody. There are over 300 units where I live, and other condo units are no less in number, and it impacts everybody's livelihood, their finances. And if there's a rogue member or existing board member that run amok and affects their livelihood, it affects public safety. Public safety cannot be compromised. To say that it's a private endeavor, it's not. It should be monitored. It should be regulated. And I'm in full support of that alone.
Thank you, Ty. Jackie, you're next.
Racketing and white collar crime, theft of people's money, that is absolutely a crime. That's a crime on the book that can be prosecuted. But again, as I've said before, we need to stop criminalizing mental illness, substance use, and mental health and divert to services. By doing this, we can focus our limited office resources, our limited police resources on investigating these very serious crimes that affect all of us, that matter to our communities, to our families, to our kupuna. And we need to make sure that they're fully investigated, that there is an arrest made, and that our prosecutors are focused on trying this case and ensure a just convictions. When we charge everything, the cases in the courts are full. Cases are being dismissed due to court congestion. Our prosecutors are stretched thin. And so this is something I would change under my administration.
Thank you, Jackie. All right, Steve, you're next, please.
Yes, I would work with the White Collar Crime Division of the Honolulu Police Department to investigate this. And if they can make cases, we can work together. I'll take them to court. Again, white collar crime can be deterred if there are sanctions for it. And on the subject of working with the police, they were thrilled when I heard I was running for prosecutor. They had worked with me at the U.S. Attorney's Office. They had worked with me at the Honolulu Prosecutor's Office. My last case there was the murder of a police officer. I was entrusted with that. So I was proud to get the endorsement of the police, and I'm proud that the police want me as their prosecutor. But they're not the only union, and people diss unions, but unions represent the working people in this state. And in addition to the police, the Building and Trades Council, the carpenters, the ILWU, the iron workers, the laborers, the masons, Local 630, the masons, Local 1, plumbers and fitters, Teamsters, now the Elks Club, they have endorsed me because they know I'm serious and I can get the job done. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. All right, Megan, you're next.
Thank you. I am not a politician, and so I'm going to answer your question directly instead of talking about which unions support me or don't support me. Your question was, how can we help? How can the prosecutor help a rogue board member? How can a prosecutor help a condo owner against a rogue board member? And the answer to your question is, sometimes it's a civil matter and other times it's a criminal matter. So because I handle both civil and criminal matters, I know when we can and when we cannot charge criminal cases. And what I've seen, I mean, you probably won't like this answer, but again, I'm not a politician and I'm going to give you an honest, truthful answer, is that a lot of the times I've brought civil cases against AOAOs and I've defended AOAOs. So a lot of the times it really is a civil matter. And it's a civil matter when you're suing the person for money or to get some type of relief. It only becomes a criminal matter when someone has violated the criminal statutes. And so we would have to find out whether or not the person violated a criminal statute, and if so, investigate and then prosecute. If not, it remains a civil matter.
Thank you, Megan. Dwight, you're next.
Yes, thank you. I'm not sure what you were asking, but if a condominium management company does something against the association, can it be prosecuted? Back in the late 80s, early 90s, I prosecuted a case where a condominium management company stole money from an AOAO. The company was charged with racketeering and was charged with theft. I did the case, I took it to trial, and we won. So, I'd have to ask you, what exactly is being doing? Is there theft occurring? What is occurring? And yes, charges can be brought, but it depends on the facts. Like that case involved a racketeering charge and a theft charge.
Thank you, Dwight. Gary, your second question, please.
Thank you, Lila, and thank you all candidates. What is your position on plea bargains for those who rely on public defenders, your position on mass incarceration, and your position on prison overcrowding? Thank you. Jackie, please.
Thank you for the question. So your first question is plea bargains as it relates to public defenders. How I understand this This question is, well, first of all, the role of the prosecutor is extremely powerful. Most cases end in some type of plea bargain or a change of plea without a trial. I've been a public defender for almost 11 years. I've handled over 1,000 cases. I've tried over 50 jury trials and 100 or so judge trials. So the majority of those are people who take responsibility or end up in a plea bargaining. That's why it's extremely critical that you elect an ethical prosecutor who will not, and who's not just all about convictions, who does not stack on charges to force a plea deal, because the risk of trial is too great. And by doing that, they're taking away the power of the judge, who's supposed to be the neutral party, to impose the appropriate sentence. And so it would be my policy as prosecutor that we charge what the facts present. And we are not going to stack on charges, count after count, just to try and get someone to plead guilty of something, to have something stick. And the second question was regarding mass incarceration. That is the reason why I'm running. I've seen how it's destroying our families and our communities, and it absolutely needs to end. We need to start investing in education, housing, and communities, and stop investing in our jails and prisons. Thank you for the question.
All right, Steve, please.
Yes, as a judge, I would sit down with the attorneys in a case. They would talk about it. They would ask me what my inclination was if they pled guilty. And I would give my inclination, saying, based on what I've heard, this is what I would do. That led to many cases of being resolved. I would then go out and put it on the record if the person pled guilty. And then later on, we could always check the record. If they decided to go to trial, fine. I would give them the same sanction if they got convicted at trial as they would as part of a plea agreement. I would not punish them for going to trial. And I think our system works pretty well. We have a good public defender system. They're not overwhelmed with cases. They were prepared. They dealt with it. The prosecutors, and some of the time, if they had an agreement I didn't like, I'd say, I'm not going to accept that plea agreement. If the prosecutors were trying to cut a guy too much slack, I would say, nope, go to trial. Because in many of those cases, it was because the person should go to prison. And the easy way out was cutting a deal with the defense. And I'd say, no, go to trial. And either they pled guilty as charged or they went to trial. At the same time, mass incarceration, we have to support policies and use proven programs like drug court, hope probation, that will allow people to succeed on probation and not go to prison. We've done that as well as weed and seed. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Megan, please.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but those questions are very difficult to answer in just 1 minute. I'll get to the plea agreements first, because that was the first question that was asked, but plea agreements are necessary. Whether the defense attorney is a public defender or a private attorney, you get a plea agreement no matter who you are if the case warrants a plea agreement. And very often victims either recant or change their story or don't want to testify, or there are other evidentiary problems. And so the parties come to a plea agreement, and it's beneficial for both parties because otherwise the defendant would not accept it. And the defendant is represented by counsel. And so the defense counsel can advise the person whether it would be beneficial to accept the plea agreement. The second question was regarding mass incarceration. It is the Department of Public Safety whose duty and kuleana is to manage the jails and the prisons, not the prosecutor's authority. The prosecutor has no authority to manage the prison that is at Halawa or the jail that is at OCCC.
Thank you, Megan. Dwight, you're up, please.
Yes, thank you. You know what? I see these three questions as being somewhat related. I mean, plea bargains is a natural evil. I mean, we don't have enough courtrooms to do for every case to go to trial. So plea bargains are a necessary evil. Mass incarceration, prison overcrowding. We should not let all three of them affect each other. By that, I mean, are we going to give a plea bargain? Is the judge going to not give jail because of mass overcrowding or because of a prison overcrowding, mass incarceration? No, none of these should affect one or the other. The sentence should be based on what is appropriate. And so although I see these are affecting each other, I think that is why I am for a new prison that is enough space for the judge to give a prison term if it is necessary, or if he feels or she feels that it is warranted. Unfortunately, I feel that because of prison overcrowding, etc., mass incarceration, sometimes judges are reluctant or maybe reluctant to give what they really feel is the correct sentence. And sometimes I feel that is why they don't give the sentence and they get chance after chance after chance on probation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dwight. All right, Tai Kim, you're up next, please.
Thank you. 9 out of 10 times, I would say 9.9 out of 10 times, plea bargains always include the judges because judges have the final saying. Defense attorney and prosecution can enter into whatever agreement they had elected to do so, but judges have to approve it, and judges are not bound by it unless they are bound by it by own their volition. They agree to it, they review the terms and conditions of plea agreement and what the individual has been charged with and so forth, and judges would either bind him or herself to the plea agreement or not, but ultimately it's judges doing the sentencing. As a prosecutor, I would be very stingy. I would be very cheap with entering into plea agreement. I would be very reluctant and hesitant to enter into plea agreement. That doesn't mean I believe every offender needs to be incarcerated. It's because accountability is so important. That's how important accountability is. And we need to promote responsible behavior. And without accountability, you can't do that. So having said all of that, we are going to ask for severe and stringent terms and conditions. But plea agreement is something that will be far and in between as far as I'm concerned. Mass incarceration. There's a talk of separating each department of criminal justice system. We have a common goal, public safety. Unfortunately, only the prosecutor's office is elected by the people. Other agencies are all political appointees. That must end.
Thank you, Ty. I'm sorry.
Yet as it may, we have to work in concert. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. It's widely accepted that trust and confidence must be restored in the prosecutor's office. So we're interested in your fundamental values, the content of your character. Regardless of the legality and the complexity of some of the following doctrines, policies, or issues, we ask you to provide immediate yes or no responses, agree or disagree type responses, with only 5 seconds for all of you candidates to simultaneously respond before we go on to the next topic. For example, regardless of the current law regarding the topic legalize marijuana, you might answer yes if you agree in general with that policy, or answer no if you do not believe in legalizing marijuana. A yes or agree is indicated with your own thumbs up. A no or disagree is indicated with your own thumbs down. Please do not use the icon. Please do not use the icon on the Zoom screen because it may take more than 5 seconds to disappear, and instead use your own hands. Okay, I hope you're ready. Here are the topics. The very first one, and again, you have 5 seconds to say yes or no. Qualified immunity.
Sorry, is the question, do we want qualified immunity or not want qualified immunity?
If you agree or disagree with that policy. Okay, well, let's pass on. We already qualified immunity. Let's go on to the next one. Civil asset forfeiture.
I'm not clear on the question.
Yeah, neither am I. I'm a little concerned about the way the question is being asked.
It's not an asking a question. What we're looking for is your spontaneous reaction to that topic, to that doctrine, to that policy, whether you agree with it or disagree with it, whether it's a yes or no for you, as simple as that, just a gut reaction. Okay, the third topic then, cash bail. Okay, homeless or houseless sweeps.
So what?
Homeless or houseless sweeps. Let's go on to the next one. Sit, lie, ban. Okay, the next one. Suspension of open meetings and public records laws under emergency orders. The next one, criminalization of substance abuse. The next one, early release from prison because of COVID-19. The next one, Black Lives Matter. The next one, body cameras on police. And the last one, traffic cameras. Thank you. Now each candidate will have up to 90 seconds to expound upon your lightning round answers, starting with Steve Alm.
I am happy to get rid of cash bail, but that's a complicated issue because you have to replace it with something. That means judges being available. That means alternatives like release on own recognizance, release on a signature bond, as well as beefing up the intake service center so you can actually supervise people. The District of Columbia Pretrial Services Agency is a good model to follow. Asset forfeiture, the devil's in the details. The day I was sworn in as U.S. Attorney, the Downtown Neighborhood Board came to see me about a bar that had been operating for years selling drugs. Police couldn't stop it. Nobody could stop it. We ended up shutting it down. So the devil's in the details, how you do it. I think you should be very careful and make the laws. We do have a law that has a fallback for people that think some forfeiture was excessive. I think body cams are really important because it'll help everybody know what we're doing. The suspension of open meeting law was needed at the beginning, and then they opened it up, and perhaps it should have been done earlier, but it was a tricky thing at first, how to do this and how to allow it to be done safely. And we have to have a better way to deal with the homeless, dealing with their behavioral health issues. Also drugs. The sad fact is, if you don't have the leverage of the criminal justice system, you just send somebody to treatment on their own, they're not going to go. Or if they go, they're going to quit as soon as it gets hard. So ask the drug treatment programs here now, do your own research, and they'll tell you the leverage of the criminal justice system done fairly is the right way to go. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Steve. Megan, you're next.
Yes, thank you. I will not take up the whole 90 seconds. I am the only candidate who is taking the position that the prosecutor's authority and kuleana is only to objectively apply the criminal laws that exist. We can legislate, we can educate the legislature. We can explain to the legislators how the criminal justice system works. We can educate our community. We can go out and provide good examples and be a community leader to address the overrepresentation of Native Hawaiians in prison facilities. But we cannot use our position to further our personal agenda and our personal goals. That leads to corruption. And I am the only person who has remained objective. And for that, I have not gotten people to endorse me, but that is what Honolulu needs right now.
Thank you, Megan. Dwight Nadamoto, you're next, please.
Yes, I don't know if I got all of them, but cash bail, you know, I look upon cash bail as just being another tool for the judge. The judge can either impose cash bail or not. You can either give them SR, supervised release, or not. So why would you take away another tool that the judge has to ensure that the public is safe and that the person is going to show up for trial? I mean, there's a recent article in Economist saying, if you do away with cash bail, there's no real alternative. There's nothing else. Asset forfeiture, I'm in favor of asset forfeiture. There are, as Steve Alm said, there are built-in safeguards, you know, as excessive forfeiture, there's the innocent owner thing. So asset forfeiture, if the person is using the car to pick up drugs, to sell drugs, it should be forfeited. I mean, if the person who owns it didn't know about it, that's fine. Then they have the innocent owner defense. Or if it's like a mansion and the person, the neighbor or the son is selling drugs and they have excessive forfeiture. So there are built-in safeguards. Body cams, I think body cams are good, but body cams, we are trying to incorporate them now, but they are not meant to gather evidence. They are kind of mainly meant for, to make sure the police officer is doing what he's supposed to do or not doing what he's not supposed to do. But right now, I'm for body cams. We're hoping to integrate it in with some of our DV things. So when the officer first meets a DV victim, they can get a body-worn cam of her expressions of her general demeanor. Drugs, as Mr. Steve Alm said, I think we need to prosecute these drugs. Drugs are what is causing much of our problems. And it's not going to do us any good to make like a less than 2 grams of misdemeanor, less than 2 grams of fentanyl will kill 600 people. I mean, I think we need to enforce our drug laws, and we got to start looking at better ways.
Thank you, Dwight. Thank you very much. All right, Tai Kim, you're up.
Thank you. I'm a strong proponent, and I believe in upholding the law as it is written currently, and the law as it will be written or rewritten or amended. You have to support the law. Without law, there is no expectation of accountability, no responsible behavior. Having said that, all the lightning round issues, as I stand on my vote, thumbs up or thumbs down, they are my position and I will stand by it. However, I will not seek my own agenda or legislate or contact the legislators to issue certain type of or force my belief on it. It is a groundwork. It is my foundation. I will listen to people's concern on each and every one of those issues and share people's pros and cons. And should the people decide to amend it, change it, or wishes to vote against it or for it, it will be taken up to their own legislators in their district, and I will wholeheartedly support it. Now, as far as cash bail, it's a tough one because cash bail, on its appearance, dictates that poor remains in custody and rich gets to get out, or people that can afford to be out. I strongly disagree with that. It is a tool, as Dwight said, but it is a tool that I don't believe is applied fairly and equally across the board for rich and poor alike. Thank you.
Thank you, Ty. Jackie, you're next.
Cash bail, it must end, creates 2 systems of justice, one for the rich, one for the poor. It allows a rich, dangerous person to buy their way out of jail while a poor, innocent person sits in jail. Under my leadership, I've already committed to ending cash bail. Civil asset forfeiture, it allows a government official to seize property when there's been no conviction or criminal charge. It brings financial incentive into policing, and it must end. Hawaii was ranked a D- for their civil asset forfeiture law. Houseless sweeps are counterproductive. It breaks apart communities. It's destabilizing. It's an endless game of musical chairs without any long-term solutions. Body cams, absolutely. We must hold police accountable to restore trust and restore community faith in our police. Police officers should want everyone to have body cameras. Drug possession, again, the war on drugs does not work. It's a driver of mass incarceration. We must treat, not punish, substance use disorder.
All right, thank you very much, Jackie. Thank you, all candidates. Now, each candidate will provide a closing statement of up to 2 minutes. And we'll start with Megan Cow.
Thank you. In 2010, as soon as Keith Kaneshiro was elected to the prosecutor's office, I quit. I was forced to resign because he brought in Catherine Kealoha as my supervisor, and I was trying to tell everybody that she was doing unethical things and that she was making misrepresentations. I was useless because I was just a line deputy. I had no power or authority over her because she was my direct supervisor. And the only way to do big trials in Honolulu is either to be at the prosecutor's office, which was not an option for me, or to be a defense attorney. And to sharpen my skills as a trial attorney, because I am a very strong trial attorney, I continue to take very big cases as a defense attorney. For Mr. Nadamoto to say that defense attorneys shouldn't run for prosecuting attorney because they they represent corrupt cops is a very shallow statement, especially for someone that is involved in the criminal justice system. We lawyers all know that it's an adversarial process. A prosecutor's duty is to prosecute the case, and a defense attorney's job is to protect the constitutional rights of the client and the entire United States of America. Our country was built on constitutional rights that everybody gets to enjoy. I have done the most trials as a deputy prosecuting attorney in the past 15 years, and that gives me the most recent and most experience. I will objectively apply the criminal laws that exist, and I have taken the most objective and the most aggressive stance as a prosecutorial candidate. I am Megan Cow, and I am the fresh new start that Honolulu desperately needs.
Thank you, Megan. Dwight Nadamoto, you're next, please.
Thank you. Public safety is a prosecutor's main job. That is why I am running. And when I looked at the individuals running for prosecutor, in this recent spate of violent crimes convinced me to run. And many of those people involved in those crimes were already on probation. As I said, many of them were on whole probation, many on regular probation. So public safety is paramount to me. And I looked at defense attorneys running. We don't need a defense attorney to be a prosecutor. As I stated, Ms. Cow, when asked about a situation where a person is at home, they get burglarized, the person has a knife, he has a gun, Ms. Cow made the comment, you don't bring a gun to a knife fight. So what are you supposed to do? Put the gun away and get another knife? We don't need more defense attorneys become prosecutors. Jackie Esser, what did she do? She wants to legalize, you heard, she wants to legalize ICE. ICE is the root of much of Hawaii's problems. ICE usage is rising. If we start to legalize ICE, that's going to send a bad message. More ICE is going to be sold, there's going to be more addiction, more crime related to ICE, and more deaths. That's why I'm running. We don't need a judge lenient on crime, and we don't need defense attorneys being our next prosecutor. Thank you.
Thank you, Dwight. Ty, you're next, please.
The biggest threat to public safety is complacency. People being complacent to elect, appoint, assign, and be comfortable with the old ways of doing things because it's easier, because you don't have to think about it, because they're most popular, because you see them more often, whether it's on TV, on the news, or what have you. Complacency cannot be tolerated. Complacency has no room in public safety. Now, the system of our criminal justice is comprised of establishments. It has been, it always has. Establishments' common theme is we do it all. We've done it all, we do it all. Ask anybody, this is how we do it. I get the most support from unions, associations, and what have you. Go ask them, go do your own research, what have you. That's the establishment's talk. They don't want changes. They don't want new faces. There are hundreds of brilliant minds on Oahu. Every year, 400 to 500 new attorneys. In 10 years, 4,000 to 5,000. In my legal career, there have been over 15,000 new lawyers licensed in the state of Hawaii. Yet we have same old establishments saying the same old things. We have the experience. You're not allowed. There's no room for it, and they run it the same way. And unions and associations and these organizations support whoever they think is most popular or electable. It's not a popularity contest, not anymore. It's people's voice. It's people's right. Criminal justice system, public safety belongs to the people. People must choose and be vigilant, not complacent. Hello.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Jackie, you're next.
Before I begin with my closing, I want to just point out it is really disheartening that our sitting acting prosecutor is tossing lies. No one ever said legalize ICE. You are taking my words and you're misconstruing them, and you are our acting prosecutor. You are unethical. First and foremost, I am a mother and I want nothing more than a safe community for my child to grow up in. For the sake of our children and their children, we must absolutely end mass incarceration. We must absolutely stop relying on our jails and prisons to solve all of our problems. We must treat substance use disorder. We must provide services to our most poor, our most vulnerable, and stop cycling people through our jails and prisons. It's time we fight against poverty and inequity and support people with mental illness, substance use disorder by investing in community services, education, and alternatives to prison. This will not happen if we keep electing prosecutors who believe that the status quo is acceptable. We need a new approach. We need a new leader. We need a paradigm shift. Not prosecutors who have been entrenched in and have profited from the current unjust, corrupt system we call justice. I am the only candidate here who has fought this system their entire legal career, and I will continue to do so as your Honolulu prosecutor. We can absolutely bring the office into the 21st century, but by doing that, we need to start electing new leaders. I appreciate your time today. Mahalo again, Kokua Council, for hosting this. Everyone, please go to my website to learn more about my policies at ESSER for Justice, and vote for real justice, real change, and real reform to move our office and create a more fair and just system. Mahalo for your time. Aloha. Vote Jackie Esser.
Thank you, Jackie. Steve, you're next.
Thank you. This election is all about restoring trust to the prosecutor's office, and I am the best candidate to do this. I have a proven track record of being innovative and creative at every office I've had. And that means the prosecutor's office, the U.S. Attorney's office, and a judge. And the first thing is the violent, the dangerous, the ones who won't stop stealing need to be sent to prison. I've done that as a prosecutor, U.S. Attorney, and as a judge. That's where I sent them. At the same time, being smart on crime, you want to do things that help people succeed. So not only am I tough with the ones that need it, but I have been innovative and progressive and done more things than the rest of the candidates combined. As a prosecutor, I created a culture of ethics and doing justice, not winning cases. As U.S. Attorney, I prosecuted police officers for civil rights violations and corruption. We also did the Weed and Seed program that reduced crime by 70% in Kalihi, Palama, and Chinatown. That's thousands of people not being victimized, thousands more who never entered the system to begin with. As a judge, I created Hope Probation with Cheryl Inoy at the probation department to help people succeed on probation. I disagreed with some of the sentences by some of the other judges, but once they're on probation, they're much better off in Hope than on regular probation. Worked with all the treatment programs to do this. I also changed some recommended changes to statutes that happened so judges had more discretion and the mandatory minimums were gotten rid of. So if you want somebody who's going to be tough on the people that need to be locked up, and some are, no question about it, and help others succeed on probation or deferral and otherwise, I'm the candidate to vote for. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve. Candidates, thank you very much for being with us today and providing insights into who you are and what your plans are should you be elected as Honolulu's prosecuting attorney. Friends, affiliates, Kokua Council colleagues, thank you for joining us today and volunteering your valuable time. As a reminder, we're all voting by